Hello and welcome to another episode of the Happy Head podcast. My name is Paul, I'm your host, and today I'm joined by Terrell. Good morning, Mark. How are you doing?
Good morning, Paul. I'm doing all right, thank you. Yes, I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to our chat.
Excellent, excellent. It's really foggy and misty down in here in Folkestone today. What's it like where you are?
Well, I'm in Bristol and it's nice and sunny, and I wish I was outside, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, we can always go outside. We can cancel the call if you like. If you feel that way about things. Anyway, what brings you to the podcast, Mike? What's your story?
Well, my story is I created my business, which is the Reluctant Leader Academy, around a concept or a story that happens to so many people in that they start down a career or they start a business and then they start to fall out of love with that business. The reason being, I believe, is it's to do with the fact that we disconnected from our motivations, not really understanding what motivates us. And if we can do that, if we can understand what motivates us, we can keep ourselves fulfilled, and that's what keeps our energy up. So essentially, that's what I like to talk about is motivation and the part it plays, and obviously understanding it better.
So, what brought you into this kind of realm of business, motivation, and what have you? How did you get to here?
What is it? About 8 years ago, I was lucky enough to sell a business I was running. It was a family retail business, which I sort of joined about 18 months after it began. My father, my brother, and my mum started that business, and I joined it after 18 months, and it was growing fast. I came in when they actually needed another pair of hands. The business was expanding, and so that business was very exciting, and I really enjoyed it initially. Getting rolling sleeves up and getting stuck in and making the business work. Retail is a type of business which you have to just get on with. You learn a lot of lessons in retail. And those early days were very rewarding. I really enjoyed them. But what happened to me, and I think what happens to a lot of people, is that they end up taking on more responsibility, and then end up doing things that they're not motivated by. And in my case, I ended up managing people most of the time, and not really having the skills or want to do it. And essentially that's what it's about. It's understanding that we can learn as much as we want about a subject, but ultimately if we don't want to do something, so if we're not motivated to do it, ultimately our energy is sapped, and we don't get the fulfillment that we need to keep going, and ultimately allow us to navigate those bumps in the road that are going to hit us at certain times.
So what kind of happened with the family business? We're going back 8 years, and you said kind of you were into it, and then started taking on more responsibility. What happened next?
So what happened was my father left the business. He started another business, which was around video rentals, which is an interesting story in itself now that that probably doesn't even exist, the rental business market. And because of that, then I had to take on that role of leading the business, managing people. And what I missed was the bringing in new ideas, innovating. I had a bit of control over that, but I didn't have the time to really sort of put my mind to those bringing those new ideas into the business. It was more of a day-to-day firefighting, managing role I had, rather than an innovative, visionary sort of role that I prefer.
Okay, so what kind of happened? Did you leave the business? Did you what went on? I mean, so you've recognized that you're not happy. You've taken on this extra responsibility. So what did you do to get yourself out of that?
So I was lucky enough that somebody knocked on the door and wanted to buy the business. So we were able to sell the business or the store that I was running. Our family retail business had 2 stores, and the store I ran was what they wanted to buy. So going through that process allowed me to free up my thinking time, realize, look back on your story. I like to say, you can't really make sense of things going forward, but it's when you look back, you suddenly make sense of things. And I realized where things might have gone a bit astray, Maybe I wasn't thinking consciously about the things that are right for me, rather than just thinking about whether this is right for me. I just took the next job or the expectations of others, and just got on with it. And so that's what happened. So I ended up in a position where really it wasn't right for me. Not that I didn't, I did it okay. We had a good business, and the business that we sold was not for sale. So it was ready to be sold, even though it wasn't for sale. So we went through that process, and then I had to reinvent myself as to what I was going to do next. And the first thing you do tends to be that, what have you learned? I had a few people encourage me, said 30 years of running a retail business. You've got lots of knowledge there, which would be useful to help others. So I set myself up, as you do, as a consultant at that time. And then I sort of morphed into more coaching, as I saw that that was what people were sort of wanting, and I got reasonably successful with that. And then I thought, well, maybe I should niche down to maybe family businesses, because that was my experience. And again, that was reasonably successful. But it wasn't until I had a session with someone who was doing some graphics work with me. So we were having a session to work out some content ideas, and the reluctant leader idea came out of that. And I suddenly thought, that's what I want to do. I want to help those people that have ended up with a business that, they don't really want to lead anymore, for many reasons, not just because they don't want to manage. There's other things that are in the mix. Then it's funny how things happen. Then I came across a model which I had experienced in the past called motivational maps, which I realized then that was going to be my key to unlocking those motivations for my clients. And so that's why motivation is important to what I do.
If somebody's running a business, they don't like it anymore, why don't they just sell it and get rid of it?
That's good. Yes, exactly. But I think what happens is that you get stuck in the day-to-day. You've got mired in the day-to-day. You actually think that because you don't like it, there's nobody else will want to buy it. It's almost like a burden for you. I think it comes that sort of you can't really think straight, and you can't think. You wouldn't have thought that anyone would want to buy something that you really don't like that much, because you've sort of fallen out of love with it. So it's a strange concept. But so it was a bit of a surprise when it happened. But it was obviously it was the right thing for me, even though we actually pushed them away initially and said, no, we're not selling. But they came back a month later and actually pushed it a bit harder. And actually, we realised it was the right time for all of us, because there was my mum and my brother was still involved in the business. So that's an interesting question. Actually, you think that logically you would just sell a business that you didn't want to do, but I think there's more things that go on, especially emotionally, and the attachment, and also responsibility to others. You want to be seen to be doing the right thing, and sometimes selling the business doesn't feel right. And it wasn't just my decision either. So I think it's a combination of things that stop you just selling something which seems on the outside to be the logical thing to do. Sometimes it's more the emotional side that kicks in, stops you making the right decision, I think, sometimes.
Okay, I kind of get that. But why motivation, in the sense of, if you're coaching people that have got a business that they're not happy with, why not kind of coach them into getting the business into a position where they can just sell it and then move on and do something different?
Well, that's essentially what I do now, Paul, because I know the trap that I fell into, and I didn't have the tools available to me then. I didn't know enough about motivation. I didn't know enough about personality styles. I didn't know about all the other things that I now teach and use on a day-to-day basis. So with knowledge comes, experience and knowledge combined. Then you realize, actually, if I knew then what I know now, I would have, made different decisions, and made the path would have been different. So what I do now is to open up that what would you call it? It's that thinking about things with regards to the business owner, making sure that the business is working for them and not the other way around. Because I think from my experience, a lot of people that start a business for reasons such as freedom, maybe making more money, being a specialist, end up creating a business that doesn't fulfill any of those things. And then they wonder why the business, that they don't really enjoy going to work, and it becomes a burden. So the first thing I do is to find out, well, what is it you really want from the business? What is the thing that drives you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? Get that fixed. Understand how the business can make that work for you, and connect that. And once you connect that and start taking conscious decisions around those things, you then start to feel better about your business. Your motivational level increases, and then you start to have more energy. Because essentially what motivation is energy. Once you've got more energy, you're more capable of coping with more things. And once you can cope with more things, then you're more productive. And it's a cycle you go through.
Okay. I always thought that motivation was a temporary thing, and kind of like when you feel motivated to go to the gym, you get up and go to the gym. But if you're not feeling motivated to go to the gym, you go, "Oh, sod it, it's raining, I'll stay in bed today." So how do you define motivation, and how is it different from the kind of definition I've just run off there really quickly?
So what you've described there is something to do with, those motivational speakers in the world, which confuses most people, realize that, because it seems to make out that we are getting motivation from something. But essentially, all motivations come from within. They're the things that drive us. The motive to take action is essentially what motivation is. The stronger the motive, the more likely we are to take action, and vice versa. If there's little motive, there is going to be little chance of any action. So when it comes to like a temporary motivation that you might get from maybe a speaker, I was probably say that's more inspirational, because in most cases they're telling a story. They're telling a story of maybe adversity through to overcoming that problem and coming out this other side. So they're inspiring to say, well, I've done it, you can do it too. So it's more inspirational, and then it gives us that sort of inspirational energy. Motivations come from within. So really no one can motivate us. What they can do is actually create the right environment to motivate us. So when we talk about it within the work concept, motivation comes from the things that are important to us. So, and very much in line with our values and our beliefs. Things like making a difference is very important to a lot of people, and becoming more and more prevalent in the work I do, making a difference. Freedom, autonomy, making our own decisions is motivational to a lot of people. Being creative and innovative, I've mentioned that's one of the things that I'm very motivated by, bringing new ideas in, solving problems. And obviously we've got things like money, and there's no reason why money shouldn't be left out of the scenario. People are motivated by money. There's nothing wrong with that. And what I tend to find with those sort of people, they're very commercially aware. And if it's lacking, if we're not driven by money, if it's one of our lowest motivators, what happens is that we become less commercially aware. We don't make decisions for our business that are commercial. We just make things that are in line with our motivations, which might not be commercial, and ultimately that doesn't help our business. So to answer your question, motivation is something that comes from within. It drives our behavior. It drives the things that we do or don't do. And if we're in touch with those things, then we can be aware of making sure those things are fulfilled, but also being aware of those Achilles heels. So the things that don't motivate us can trip us up. And quite often that's the money drive I see, and also things like promoting ourselves, that marketing sort of thing that we have to do. In most cases, people don't want to do.
Okay. So what comes first? The desire to help other people, or motivation? So I'm having a hard time, not having a hard time, but I'm trying to figure out what comes first. Is motivation the driver that wants me to help people, or is it because I want to help people, I get motivated to do something? Which kind of way does it go?
Well, that's an interesting question. There's two. There's a motivation away from something, and then there's a motivation towards something. So obviously, that's the conversation that's being had. So if we talk about money firstly, you can be driven to have lots of money, or you can be driven away from not having enough money. So there's a difference in how people perceive that, and so it's being clear about what you are driven by and why you're driven by it. But obviously we haven't got time to go too deep into this sort of stuff. But essentially there are three elements that end up driving our motivations. Firstly is our personality, which is what has happened to us up until this point. So you could say that's our past. So the things that we've experienced, the things that have happened to us in the past are one thing, so our past. The next thing is our present, the things that are happening around us, the things that we want to achieve, things like, like the money thing, like expertise or getting maybe control and power over others. And then essentially, so they're the present time, the sort of achievement stuff. And then lastly, there's those things that we want to aspire to be. So the future. So there's the three time elements here: past, present, and future. So all these things are working all the time for us. So, and the important thing to remember is that motivations change over time. And so it's a good thing to keep in touch with them and understand them, realizing that if you know what motivates you today, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the same thing that motivates you in maybe 2, 5, 10 years time. And you'll realize that because you'll look back and you'll realize that there was different things that motivated you in the past. So as things changed from the past, things would change in the future. So motivation is something that changes as opposed to our behavior styles. Behavioral styles tend to stay fairly static unless we're actually trying to change them or are consciously trying to change them. So motivations have those three elements: past, present, and future, and we're either moving towards something or away from something. Does that make sense?
Kind of, but I'm still trying to figure out where motivation fits in, as in the word or definition of motivation. Because I don't know, I want to buy a cake. I really fancy a cake with loads of cream and sprinkly bits on it. So I get dressed and I put my boots on and I go to the shop and I buy the cake. Yeah, because I really fancy it. The next day, I really, really fancy the cake, but it's pouring with rain, and I just I can't be bothered. I really want the cake, but they don't deliver, so I'm not going to bother. The thing I'm trying to get my head around is motivation, and is it an emotion? Is it something that comes up because of the desire to want to do something, or is it just there and then the emotion produces the desire? Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely get it. So let's talk about where motivation fits in with regards to our performance or the things that we want to do. There are three elements to there. There's lots of threes I'll be talking about here. Firstly, we're going to decide what we do. So you talk about going to get your cake. So that's what you're going to do. The second thing, you decide on how you're going to do it. And that in a business context is you set the direction, which is the what. The second is the how we're going to do it. That involves the skills. And the third element is the motivation. That is our why. Why do we want to do it? Why should we actually even bother to do that at all? And so essentially going back to your cake analogy, if your motivation isn't strong enough, then your why isn't strong enough. So in other words, I want a cake, but I don't want to get wet to get it. So the why isn't strong enough. So it's understanding what is important to you, which will really make you do what it is that you want to do. If we talk about a business scenario, what is going to make you get up and make a difference in the world? So that will be to do with the things that are important to you. Yeah. So I wrote a blog recently about a patch of land becomes available, and there's two partners are given it, and one is driven by money and one is driven by making a difference. So those people are looking at that opportunity completely different. One wants to make money, one wants to make a difference. It might be to the community, so create something that's great for the community. The other person just said, well, how can we make as much money as possible here and get a good return? So straight away, that those two concepts, those two people have different concepts in their heads as to how this might look. So this is important when we come to working with other people, which is about, a lot of people talk about personalities. We fall out about our personalities, but actually what we fall out more about is our values and the things that we see as important. So one person sees making money as to be important, and the other sees making a difference being important. Those people are going to be a little bit of conflict going on there. And what they need to do is have shared values to understand that they can actually get an outcome that fits both concepts. But if you think about the motivations going on in their heads as to what's driving what they want to do, and we have like a filtering system. So I'm filtering it in one way and the other person is filtering it a different way, then that's, if we're not in line, so we haven't got an alignment in the things that drive us, then we're going to have some sort of misunderstanding and conflict. And we're not really going to communicate very well together. So it's important to understand where each person's coming from. Yeah. So I don't know whether you've talked about personalities in the past or behavioral styles. So that's important with regards to understanding how people want to do something, how they behave, their behavioral styles. And it's important for understanding and communicating and rapport and all these really important things when you're in a group. But this is more important in a way, in that this is why people do what they do. And this is almost their core and what they want to achieve. So it's like that burning desire. So if someone's got a burning desire to make a lot of money, and then another person's got a burning desire to make a difference, those people are not seeing things the same. And there's no right or wrong. It's just the first thing you need to do is identify it.
Oh, no, I get that, because we all have different values and beliefs because we were born into these bubbles of belief. And, if you're building a team, then it's important that the team, although they may have different skill sets, have the same values and beliefs, because otherwise you're not going to drive forward in the same direction. So I understand that. What about motivation as opposed to discipline? Because let me give you another example. I don't like going to the gym, so I've got stuff at home because I know I want to maintain my strength, my fitness. So I do exercise. I don't enjoy it, but I do it because if I do it every day, I know that it benefits me. But it does. I'm not motivated by doing the exercise. It's something that I have to do, like kind of, I don't know, drinking water. You got to stay hydrated, so you drink water. I don't enjoy drinking water, but I do it. And it's the same with exercise. And the way I've got myself to do it every day is by being disciplined about it. So where does does motivation play a part in discipline, in doing things that you not particularly want to do day in, day out?
So in that instance, it's connecting to the outcome that you want. So in effect, we're talking about drinking water gives you good health. So ultimately, you're connected to the outcome you want, which will drive your behavior. Similarly, I'm not really a big fan of going to the gym, and we haven't been able to do that for the last year anyway. So, but I've got into a class which really floated my boat, in that it was very high impact. It was something that I really enjoyed because there was lots of feedback. So what I realized is that what I need to exercise or connect to the importance of exercise, and to realize that I need to feel that I'm getting some sort of feedback and that I'm making progress. So I use a MyZone belt, which gives me feedback. It tells me that I'm doing exercise, moving towards an outcome, that it tells me how many points I need to the recommended. So it gives me some feedback in regards to how I'm done, how many more I've got to do. So I check in with that. So exercise in itself is obviously, we know we should do it. So why don't everyone just go and do it? It's because they don't have a clear idea of what outcome they're looking for. So motivations are about an outcome. It's what you want to happen in the future. What do you want to be like? If you want to sit you know the consequences if you sit on the sofa. Ultimately, you'll become fat. Your energy will be low, and ultimately it will become more and more difficult. The longer you do that, more difficult to change and be different. So what we've got to connect with is, what is it that's important to us? What do we want to be in the future? And connect that. That's what gets us to do the exercise. It's not doing the exercise just for the sake of it. It's actually realizing that I want to be a fit person when I'm 50, 60, 70 or whatever it is. And to do that, I need to do this. And then work out the things that are important to you. Like me, feedback's important. And I look for it, and it keeps me going. And the points thing, it seems a bit sort of basic, but it does make a massive difference to me to make sure that I do it, because I don't want to get to the end of the month and it tells me you haven't got enough, you haven't done enough this month, because ultimately then I'll feel bad about myself. So it's connecting to those things and using like technology or whatever works for you to get to the outcome that you're looking towards and working towards. Yeah. So it's outcome based. That's what you need to be, as opposed to it's not the how, it's the why. Again, why am I doing this? Essentially.
Okay, so extrapolating that into a business scenario, got a one-person band. She's running her own health-related business, whether a PT or some kind of healer, but isn't able to be consistent in posting on social media, because that's where she gets her clients from. How does that person become more consistent in posting, rather than kind of posting 3 times on a Wednesday and then once on a Saturday and then maybe nothing the next week and twice the following week? How does that person develop the consistency she needs to be constantly being out there in the social media world?
Yeah, so that's a common problem where people aren't promoting themselves or getting themselves noticed. So what you've got to do is actually take that and realize that it's if you're working towards an outcome. So if you want to have a successful business, you've got to realize that you need to do something about marketing. That's essential. We know we've got to do it. If you don't market, then no one finds out about you, and your business is unlikely to be successful. So it's, again, what you got to, those sort of people are probably driven by freedom, driven by making a difference, being a specialist in what they do. So what we've got to do is think about, how can I connect that act of doing the social media post to the outcome I'm working towards? So it's always connecting the outcome to things that does drive you, and connect it to, rather than saying I'm going on social media just to so people notice me. You say, I'm going on social media because I know that my business needs it, because if I don't do it, I won't create the business I want, I won't create the freedom I want, I won't make a difference, I won't be the specialist I want to be. And connecting to those outcomes, as opposed to just for the sake of promoting yourself. It's connecting to that outcome.
Okay, so she's now wants to post once a day, but she doesn't kind of know what to do. Again, would you say that she needs to kind of think about the outcome and then work back from there? So the outcome is, I want to grow my business, I want the freedom, I want the independence, I want to help people. So therefore, I need to figure out what I can talk about today that might help one person or might bring one person into my world. Is that the kind of process that it should follow?
It is, but also a little bit like the fact that I used the MyZone vote to get some feedback, is to look for some feedback. In most cases, people just want to see that they're making some sort of progress. So likes and comments and more followers, although they might feel as if they're a bit sort of like, uncomfortable, but it is a feedback mechanism. It makes you feel as if you're making progress. And that's what we, as human beings, we want to feel we're making progress. And there's nothing like that, switches us off when we see that we're doing something that is not leading to anything. It's not making any difference. And that's the problem with social media and posting and marketing, is that in most cases it's a long-term thing, not a short-term thing. People want quick responses. They want quick, everything needs to be quick, doesn't it? And they want to get a result quickly. But actually some things take time, so you have to be consistent. It's realizing that's the important thing. Consistency is, with marketing, is the important thing, not suddenly doing something like mad for a few days and then not doing anything for 2 weeks. That's never going to work, because you need to be consistent and show up regularly. So it's realizing that you've got to do it, and you've got to find a way to make it work for you, even if it's not something you need to do. And there's the scenario when when you set up on your own. Most people are driven to do it because they want freedom and they want to be a specialist and they want to make a difference. But they don't think about, do I want to market myself? Do I want to sell my services? They're the typical ones that trip everybody up. They don't think, how do I feel about selling? How do I feel about marketing myself? So there's no magic pill. It's just realizing they're the things I least need to do or want to do. How am I going to get over it? There is only two solutions. I either do it myself or find someone to do it for me. And then you decide whether you can afford to get someone to do it for you. If you can't, then you have to do it. There's no other way. There's no magic pill, as I said. You've got to find a way that works.
And you've got to find well, again, I'm sort of assuming here that you need to find a motivation to help you be more consistent. So again, thinking of the end goal. So rather than thinking that, okay, I've just posted today and nobody's commented, liked or whatever, which is a vanity metric anyway, but over the longer term, it's keeping my head above water, in the sense of, I'm posting and posting, and then my 10 followers or my 50 or my 500 followers, a small percentage of that will see that post a day, and they will know that I'm still around.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know whether you've had things that happen to you, that suddenly someone pops up and said, oh, I've been following you for the last 6, 12, 18 months. And all of a sudden, they contact you and want to do some work with you. So it's remembering that that's going on, and think about your own behaviors. You don't suddenly jump into want to work with someone. You want to follow them, find out what they do, look at their website, follow them on social media, see where they're speaking. We do all this ourselves. So why would it be any different for someone that you want to work with? You've just got to allow that to happen, and be patient, be consistent, and get support. I think that's the thing, that if you want things to happen and you don't think you'll be able to do it on your own, find a way to get people to be accountable to. So it's one of the things that people shy away from, but it's one of the most powerful things you can do, is get accountability from someone. It doesn't have to be someone you pay. It could be just someone that you regularly meet on, say, networking, and say, look, I'm looking for someone to keep me accountable. Is that you? Do you want me to keep you accountable to what you need to do for your business? And that, just doing that sometimes is enough. Then you could maybe think about, a mastermind group, or getting a coach, getting a mentor. Accountability is really important, because there's always going to be things that we don't want to do. And it's realizing that, and making sure that if there's someone that is going to ask whether we've done it, we're more likely to have done it. And we don't want to turn up to the next meeting or the next time we see them and say, no, I haven't done any of those things I said I was going to do. We feel embarrassed. Because we don't want to feel embarrassed, we make sure we do them. So motivation isn't about just doing the things that motivate you. That's the important thing to remember here. So it's understanding, yes, fulfill your top motivators, but also understand the things that don't motivate you, because they're going to be, in most cases, your Achilles heel, because they're going to trip you up. Because if you don't do them, another one that comes up quite often is people that don't put enough structure in. So they're shy away from structure because they want freedom. But if they don't have processes, then every day is like, you're reinventing the wheel. You've got to put processes in to make your business work and systemize things. So again, if that's not something that you're motivated by, then find someone that is motivated by it and get them to help you set up systems so that you don't have to keep doing the same things time and time again, which will save you time, which will ultimately save you time in the long run. So it's a sort of trade-off between short-term pain and long-term gain.
So can you give an example of like a system or process that you actually mean that somebody needs to put in place?
So, I mean, basic things like, reconciling your bank statement. Yeah, is something that I've always been used to with the businesses that I've run. So I'm set up, I go in, I've connected my bank account to my bank feed, I think they call it. So every transaction that goes through my bank goes straight into my accounting software, I should say, and then you reconcile it each day. So you always know where you stand. So those sort of very simple things can make a massive difference to, at the end of the month thinking, oh my God, I've got to do my accounts. Whereas if you set up a system that allows you literally at the end of the day, just go to your bank account or your accounting software, which already has the transactions in, all you do is allocate them to what they are, check them off, and then you're done. Rather than leave it to the end of the month or the end of the quarter, or worse thing still, the end of the year, and then it's a mad rush and you don't know where you are. So these are the things that I've come across where just a little bit of time each day will save you hours of anguish and stress, because nobody really likes to do their accounts. So that's one thing that I think people first of all get that sorted. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, Mark, how do you help your clients? What do you do exactly?
So the way I help my clients is I first of all make sure that they are getting those key motivators fulfilled from their business. So we start there. The next thing we think about is what's their ideal job within that business. So make sure we get that right, because that's a mistake a lot of people make, in that they think they should need to be MD. They think they should be a certain thing, and then actually you don't. Because if you decide that you want to have a particular role, then the space you leave behind is what you fill. So if you want to get a manager in, then do that if that works for you. So do that, and then essentially, if they want to learn how to lead a team or build a team, that's what I teach them to do. Understanding the 3 principles of mindset, understanding the right mindset to be in to build a team and lead a team. Understand there's a process to follow, and the process must start with a vision. And I had an interesting conversation with somebody recently who said, "Oh, I don't get all this vision stuff. I don't buy into it." And I'd had a conversation up to this point. I said, "Well, hang on a minute." I said, "You just told me that you want to have a bigger house in the next few years because your family is growing." He said, "Yes." I said, "What? So isn't that a vision? Isn't that if you want that, then you first of all you've got a vision it. And so having a vision that you move towards." And he suddenly said, "Well, no one's explained it like that before." And I said, ultimately, a vision is just something that we're moving towards. So a 4-step process I teach, where it must be a clear vision with where you're going, and it doesn't have to be complicated. The simplest vision I've ever heard was a head starting at a new school, or joined a school, and they noticed that there was bars on the window. So their vision was, by the time I leave the school, I want to have the bars off the window, or off the windows. Now, whether they actually achieve that or not is another thing. But actually, if you start to move or take action around everything you do is towards getting the bars off the window, then you're more likely to achieve it. So that's the 4-step process, starting with the vision, which you then you can repeat. And then finally, the right skills at the right time. And with leadership, there's 4 elements of leadership. There's directing, there's coaching, there's mentoring, and then there's delegating. So you need to know when to do each one of those things. And you might have noticed there's 4 steps to the process and there's 4 elements. So directing initially, coaching, mentoring, delegating are the 4 things that we need to bear in mind at each step in that process. So essentially, mindset, process, skills is what I teach. to build a team and lead a team.
Where's the best place for people to reach you, Mark?
So you can reach me and find me on LinkedIn. Obviously, Google type my name in, and also my website is thereluctantleader.academy, and all sorts of stuff on there. There's courses, ways to contact me, blogs, and also my YouTube channel where I put some tips and tricks and all that sort of stuff on there. And I do a live show which goes out on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, which I call the Get Savvy Show, where I have guests on, and you might catch me there, where I talk about getting savvy about all sorts of things, which helps my audience, and also sometimes they're connected to leadership. So.
Okay. Last thing before we finish for today, is there any, how can I put this? Your strongest, your best tip or suggestion for anyone that is actually struggling with building motivation, building discipline, and like we talked about, being consistent in business? What's the one thing you would suggest?
I think don't underestimate the small things that people disregard. So making a difference is something that's really important to a lot of people, and it's one thing that people are driven by. So if that is something that you really want to make a difference in the world, then the thing you've got to look out for is get some feedback, and understand the difference you're making. So I had somebody came to me once and they just said, oh, I've lost motivation. She was a conveyancing solicitor. I just simply said to her, so I'm sure you make a difference. Go and look at your feedback. She came back to me, said, look, I've checked my feedback. I now realise what I actually do. I'm not a conveyancer. I actually help people to buy their dream home. And that's simple as that sometimes, is connecting to the outcome. What is the outcome that you help to achieve? And if you've lost sight of that, reconnect with it. So that's the top tip I would say.
Yeah, I like that. Reconnect to the outcome. Follow the process, reconnect to the outcome. Listen, Mark, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Thank you, Paul. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Brilliant. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll speak to you in a couple of days. Bye now.